how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? If you want to be this top level business owner, you should also be a top level dad and a top level husband, you know? And if you're going to be a top level business owner, you need a top level team. So you got to pour just as much as you do into the business and your family, like into your team.
How goes it?
It's going good, man.
Flew in this morning.
Yeah. Had a bumpy ride in. It was storming out, but the view on the way up, we caught the sunrise in Florida, and then the storm in Iowa being above the clouds coming down was pretty cool. It looked like a bunch of cream puffs. It was super cool.
Yeah.
Kids love it.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right, well, today on the show, we've got Austin Maginnis. He is actually one of my professors from way back when.
Don't you dare call me that name.
An instructor.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, special guest today, co-owner of Team Builders out of Cedar Falls, and they also have a location in Florida. So
Sarasota.
Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about that. How did that come to be? Getting the second one.
Really, it was a family decision. First and foremost, like the foundation of the reason behind it wasn't necessarily like a business strategy move. It was more for family reasons, family peace, just kind of, not that we needed a fresh start, but it was just more, better for my wife and I and our relationship and what we wanted to do. She's definitely one that flourishes in nice weather. You get around Iowa, sometimes it can be draining through the winter. So, but no, she also had a little bit of burnout with her business, and it was a good, healthy reason for us to move. Good for the kids too, and yeah, I mean that was the foundation. And I spoke with my partners, so two partners, Ken and Trevor, had a sit down meeting with them. It was really kind of one of those like come to Jesus meetings where it's like, hey, like, this is what I'm doing. This is what my family's doing. Like, my mind was made up, and I think they could tell, like, that was, and I didn't want to leave, the team behind. It was like, can we do both? And so then it became like this equation of, being best for the family and best for the business. And here we are 2 years later, and what's come from the move, it was almost just like meant to be. And there's a lot of synergies that we gain, we share a lot of services. So we actually have like estimating and design services out of our Iowa office. And then we have more bookkeeping, marketing heavy out of our Florida office, and growing every day too. So it's just kind of, it's a cool position to be in. It's honestly a dream. I love what I do. And to have two locations is really cool. It's challenging. But we have aspirations for more too, and so we have strategy to play to go and attack and do that. So we can get into some of that today too if we really wanted to. But yeah, floor is yours, man. I just really enjoy getting on stuff like this. I like to pour my heart out. I don't want to hold anything back, and you're a student of mine too. I really think it's cool what you're doing, sharing the hidden hustle of entrepreneurs, which is a cool story. And I love hearing other people's stories. So I appreciate someone who's bringing those stories to life, and that's super cool. So keep following that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like, honestly, it kind of goes into more of a vision of what we're trying to do. So we set a vision in 2021. So 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 it was a 5-year vision. This year's 25. At the time, we were just $1 million company in 2021. Like 1.7 maybe, and that was chasing our tails. Like, that was the hardest 1.7 we've ever done. That was honestly 3-4 years into the business at that point. So we were those 3 years into the business, because this year will be 8. So 3 + 5 is 8, right? So still just a baby infant. I was still full-time teaching at the University of Northern Iowa construction management. My partner was actually doing a little bit of double duty too. He taught at Hawkeye. Taught the carpentry apprentice program. So we were both teachers, kind of had that little bit of a background, shared mutual interests. He and I were both from Mason City, Iowa originally, and I could get into the story of kind of how we came to be.
Yeah, what's the origin story of?
Oh man, let's get into vision. But really kind of vision-wise, like that 25, vision initially was to do 10 million by year 5, but also reinvesting half of our profits and, basically pouring back into the business for growth reasons and employees. So not just like being profitable to fill our pockets as owners, but being profitable to grow and provide more opportunities for our team and pour into our team. And so every step of the way, every year, I could point to one thing that we did that was growth for the business and one thing that we did every year that was growth for our team and reinvesting into our team, whether that be insurance benefits, 401k, trucks, just different, benefits. Because our goal too is to keep employees for life. We want to make carpentry cool. We want to make that, feel like it's a dying trade. Construction in general is. And so like to bring about a business that can be somewhere for people to grow that are skilled trades, hands-on type individuals, and basically have a home for them to grow and have a career. So that's kind of was the original vision. And then this, next vision is going to be a 2030 vision. And so we're starting to develop that this year, and that's fun. And with 2 locations, it's just like, if what we've done in 5 years to get to the 10 million, and it's coming, it's happening right before our eyes, what the next 5 years could be.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of cool. But then the origin story, Trevor and I actually went to high school together. We weren't necessarily buddies, more, acquaintances at the time. He was a year older than I was. Funny fact too, we both actually married girls from Northwood, Manly, Kensett area. And they went to school at Central Springs, and that's just kind of a cool story. So his wife was in the same grade as my wife's brother. So cool story there. But back to the origin story, I'm in Waterloo, Cedar Falls, just moved from Minneapolis, I'm from Mason City, moved to Waterloo, Cedar Falls after living in Minneapolis for 3 years after college, and moved and became an engineer, was doing HVAC, plumbing, fire suppression design. Trevor was actually worked at Target Distribution for a while, Martin Brothers, and actually kind of went out on his own, was doing his own handyman work, worked for another contractor in town too. But went off on his own doing that. And I was basically flipping a house. During that time, was having trouble with some subcontractors. Ended up having a conversation with a good friend from high school who knows Trevor well. Was like, hey, you should hit up Ingles. Like he's in town. If you're, I was telling him about the troubles I was having. Flipping my first house was just like, struggles every step of the way.
True stories there.
Building your network base, like it was just its whole thing. And great experience, but Trevor came on, ended up, pulling him into the project, and he handled sub-coordination, he handled skilled carpentry stuff like custom barn doors, custom accent wall, dealt with inspectors, was managing some trades, built me a deck in the middle of January. Like I remember pulling up the site and freezing cold out, dude's got bibs and solo, jacking up a deck and just like polishing a turd, so definitely gained a ton of respect from me just in his work ethic and, his skill that he brought to the table, and just all he was juggling at the time. Was really impressed. And so I had the conversation with him like, hey man, I would love to continue to do this and like exit out of, being an engineer. And he was like, hell yeah, man, let's figure out how do we do that. And we ended up having a conversation. We played softball with each other that summer. And either depending on the time of softball, we'd either meet before or after and just start to develop the business plan of what we wanted to do. We started reading some books together on just business partnership. Rocket Fuel is the book that we were reading, and very paramount book for us. And just knowing his style and my style, knowing that like going into business together was almost like a marriage, like you want to make sure you're a good fit, and felt that way. And so the day that we incorporated Team Builders and started our work was the same day I actually started at UNI. So I left engineering, started at UNI as an adjunct, and it ended up being like, it was supposed to be just like a 1 semester thing. There was a professor prior that had some health issues, which is the reason for the position. And I had fell into that by dumb luck, basically. Really enjoyed it, ended up doing it for 5 years. And all the while building, Team Builders on the side. And honestly, a lot of the history of Team Builders that was actually hiring some students, as interns and growing organically that way. And we learned just as much from students half the time as they were learning from us. And that was really kind of the organic foundation of the first 5 years at Team.
Mm-hmm.
So,
nice.
Yeah. Started out of my basement and Trevor's basement. And
right.
We ran a lot of meetings out of a Caribou coffee shop in those early days.
Yeah.
And graduated into a gym. We actually ran operations out of a gym. We had a ping pong table inside the gym. And then we stumbled upon the Derecho in 2020, August of 2020. The Derecho hit Cedar Rapids, and at the time we were really heavy into roofing, siding, gutter work, and so we chased that storm, and that had a lot of fruit, but it also stretched us thin, and so it about broke us in a lot of ways, and so we ended up pulling out of Cedar Rapids in 22, and really pivoted the business in a big way in 22. And committed to decks, fences, and custom build, and that's our niche today. And that's we just started our deck and fence operation in Florida this year. So now both Iowa and Florida have a deck, fence, custom build operation, which is a good balance, and that's where a lot of the synergy comes from. Is both locations doing similar work, right?
Yeah. So what that first few months or the first year look like at Team Builder? So you said, was it the Derecho that was part of that first year?
No, Derecho was 2020, and we started in 17. The first year was really, we called ourselves basically the screen door company. You know, we'd be the company that would come and fix your screen door. Yeah. But it started with a lot of small jobs. Actually, one of my favorite stories, our first job, I'll never forget. We had a storm. It was a storm job, but like the siding that we were removing off of this house, nice house, was a relatively new house, but like the storm hail damage, right? So like decent sized house, 2 stories. The backside is what looks to have like marks, but they got whole new siding on their claim. Well, we listed the siding on like Craigslist, like for sale, like, hey, does anybody want this for like a rental or something? And we ended up getting it sold. Guy came and picked it up. Like we basically demoed it, set it on side. The guy came, pulled up with a trailer, loaded it on the trailer, avoided a dumpster.
Right.
Basically got paid for the material. We got paid basically almost $4,000 for the material. And we ended up buying our first trailer, enclosed trailer, with those funds. So that was like flipping material. We've never done that ever again, but the first time we ever did a job, I was like, how do we get creative? It's just one of those creative, ways to, and then, we bought an enclosed trailer, which was like epic. We were operating out of just the back of a F-150 at that point.
Right.
So.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was wild.
That's wild.
One of my favorite stories. And the trailer had hail damage.
Oh my gosh.
So we scooped that up for relatively cheap too, and we still have it today. It's in our fleet.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's an
epic story.
When you think about like what's made team builders successful, what stands out?
Honestly, like when we first started Team, it was Trevor Ingles, Austin Maginnis. Like it was an acronym. We took the acronym away because it's about the locker room. It's about the team, the people in the business. And in a lot of ways we say like the business operates like a family, but it's like that locker room type family where when you're on the team, everything's cool, but you can still be traded. You can still be cut if you're not performing. Right. So you're treated as family so long as you're in the locker room. But if you mess up that opportunity, you're cut. Or it's not necessarily cutthroat like that, but it's, we pride ourselves on who's inside the walls of the locker room, and we treat everybody that's in the locker room with a ton of respect, and we pour out for them. We basically have a saying, you bleed black and green. People that are out there wearing, team builders with pride in the community and saying good things like, we want our team members to be our number one recruiters. We want our team, members to be our number one word of mouth referrals, right? And we very much have that, and this culture is everything. And so that's the most important piece to our success, is the people inside the walls.
What were some key lessons you've learned along the way, like even like the hard way?
Honestly, the Derecho was a big learning lesson, and one of the reasons we pivoted out of storm work. We were doing storm work by happenstance. We got like the first project we did was storm work, right? That siding job. And there was an abundance of it in Cedar Falls at that time when we were getting started. So that's part of the reason we got into that. We ended up really diving into roofing, siding, and gutters, but it was almost like we hated every step of it. And we weren't built for it. We were a team of carpenters, and we were subbing out a lot of that work. We built good systems for it, but when we went to Cedar Rapids, it tested our systems. It tested us logistically. That was a hard lesson. Like we were like, oh, we're gonna, it's 2020. We're 3 years into business, and we always have wanted like an expansion. Like, oh, Cedar Rapids, this makes so much sense. This is the opportunity. Derecho just messed up the whole town. Well, you go and you do all that work, and then the work dries up too. So like, we tried to get a salesperson there. We tried to build out a crew there, and every step of the way, it was more agony than it was like, it just wasn't worth it. So huge learning lesson for us. If you're going and starting a new location, and this is part of the reason why we are successful in Sarasota, we learned that lesson the hard way. You need boots on the ground. We were trying to operate in Cedar Rapids, even though it's only an hour away. Trevor and I weren't there. Neither of us can. And so, we were hiring guys there that it was just like hard to train, hard to manage, and just headaches every step of the way, running mostly subcontracted trades, which we didn't really have the resources. So no boots on the ground. We weren't well connected. When we went to Florida, we bought an existing business. It came with a Rolodex. It came with a network. It came with a runway. It came with some projects. It came with a phone number. It was established, a 30-year existing business, where we were being more of a startup mode down there. So we learned really good lessons that would, suit us well later when we did the expansion to Florida. And one of the reasons why we decided to buy a business doing that, because I wasn't just going to go down there and do a startup, because that's just recipe for disaster. You're shooting from the hip and you have no connections.
Yeah.
So.
No, buying makes way more sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was that process like, buying a business?
There's a book out there called Buy Then Build, and I actually been following, like, we actually looked at buying businesses in Cedar Falls prior to the Florida thing ever even becoming an idea. We looked at a fencing business, we looked at a concrete business, we looked at a plumbing business. Like, we were always seeking expansion, and eventually, like, after the Cedar Rapids thing, it was like buying a business as the founder started to make more sense to me. I started to look into it and was like, damn, there's a huge opportunity out there for, these baby boomers that are retiring. They call it like this $10 trillion opportunity is kind of what the Twitter sphere says about it.
I feel like I've heard that now.
Yeah. And so, yeah, you can find plenty of people talking about SMB, which stands for small to mid-sized business opportunities, where you could buy with SBA money, which is what we did, another business. And honestly, like, just like you go on Zillow and you can find a house, you can go on Biz Buy Sell and find a business. So it's there's an abundance of businesses out there looking to sell. And if they're working with the right broker, that broker is listing that business on Biz Buy Sell. There's franchise opportunities on there that aren't even operational yet. Like, oh, I want to start, this fence franchise in Sarasota. Well, you could buy the rights to that territory and start a franchise if you wanted to. And franchise is a whole different operation. Ours was just it was a one-man owner, operated for 30 years, and he had 2 employees and a couple, business assets. It was not really like, I didn't buy like this, fully operational, systemized business. Like, I found a business that I could buy at a decent price. I felt like I was getting a good deal. Business valuation was like $900K. I bought it for $650 and ended up having clawbacks that got me down to close to $500. So based on a $900K valuation, getting it for $5 was pretty good. And that was an independent third-party valuation. And so I also went and toured it. I did good due diligence. I didn't just sight unseen buy this thing, I went and got to meet the employees, which is kind of unheard of, but that was the only way I was going to do it. I was able to, really see some of the projects and quality of work. Once I saw the neighborhoods that this guy was in and how he didn't have a stickered up truck, he wasn't doing any marketing, like, everything was word of mouth. And I'm like, dude, if this guy just turned on a little bit of a marketing faucet, this thing could blow up, and not that we've blown up by any means, but like, when here in Iowa, we got to sometimes pay to get leads, In Florida, I haven't had to do that. My truck wrap, yard signs, word of mouth, good reputation, the phone number I have has been enough. And so it's and there's just an abundance of work down there. I went down there, and every corner I turned, there was a dumpster of a home getting, demoed, or a full tear downs and rebuilds. Just the whole community is it's insane what was happening down there. And so, yeah, I mean, that sold the deal for me on knowing that I was potentially sitting on a gold mine, and not saying that like it's produced all this fruit. Like, it's been 2 years of hard work to get it to a level where, now we have 11 employees. It's starting to feel like, that locker room culture, where just initially, like, it was a grind for me coming from this location with such an awesome culture and such amazing people, to go down there and really be on my own, having to deal with the turnover. There was a little bit of, rub between me and the existing owner. After a certain period of time, he had 90 days of like turnover, and after 45, it really kind of stopped. And yeah, it was just, there's challenges every step of the way. And I mean, even from that point, building it and finding a new home and building a team, and a lot of the systems that we built in Iowa is what I was able to leverage, and what I had already learned and done once here from scratch. Right. Taking it there and just doing it again, I was able to accelerate a lot faster, but also have the support of the Iowa team bought in on that mission. Was a big thing too, because initially when I went down there, it's like, oh my gosh, our CEO is leaving. I don't know what my employees felt like, but I know there was initial shock when I'm announcing it to the team. Like, hey, moving to Florida, we're gonna have another location. Everyone's just like, the hell. Fearless leader, taking off and just charting new territory. And initially, I'm sure there was some shock, but 2 years in now, team is bought in more and more every 90 days, and we talk about strategically planning, how we're going to grow that thing, and how the team here, is a big part of that mission. It's not just me and the Florida employees, which it felt like initially. It's been this change, this shift of culture, even down there, and this building of the 2 employees I inherited when I bought the business are no longer with me today. All 11 employees that we have are organic, built, which is cool. And that's why it feels the way it feels now versus, a year and a half ago.
How do you build that reliable team?
That's a good
What's
question.
your approach to hiring employees?
Honestly, like, if I'm going to be like nuts and bolts and strategic with it, the answer is serving them. Like, I look for opportunity to sponsor them in the business, if you will, like make them bleed black and green as fast as possible. And the only way to do that is to go out and serve them, do something for them that, a lot of the recruits that we have are in a bad situation. Like, it's surprising how many are just like in a job that they hate, whether that be not being treated well, just not in the right seat to operate in their unique ability, whatever that is. And we have an opportunity that really attracts them, and they also see the culture. So, our new office, just like the vibe that you come in, like you came into this office, like you can feel it when you walk in. Yeah. It's kind of that locker room. Like, when you walk in, like, imagine if you walked into the Green Bay Packers locker room in Green Bay, Wisconsin, in Lambeau Field. How freaking cool that is, right? Like, I'm not saying this is Lambeau Field, and I'm not saying that we got that type of a locker room, but like, that's how I want people to feel when they walk in. It's like this aura of like, holy shit, like, this company's got their stuff together. This is a team. They got the whiteboard wall. They got their, office table, their conference room that looks like the conference room's wide open. It's a big team builder, like, custom table. It's like a statement piece. And we got this pergola suspended from the ceiling, hanging over it with some like outdoor lighting kind of vibe. And it's like, when you walk in here, and I tell this to homeowners too, when you walk into my office and the way you feel, like, I want you to feel that way when you walk into your home, or I want you to feel that way when you're standing on your back deck, looking over your land, right? Your kingdom. That's how I want people to feel, and that's that kind of locker room vibe. So that, to me, was so paramount in Florida to Florida's success. When initially I went there, we were working out of a garage. I honestly just posted about this the other day. Like, it was, and it was on the dude's property. So like, I'm working with the dude, and we got some resentment building up, and like, I got to go to work at his garage. So getting out of there in 90 days, and then I moved in with another contractor basically, and then I was basically in his garage. And his and my relationship also was just like, he was very controlling. So it's just like, ended up buying the building from him, and then I kicked him out. And then we repainted the building, remodeled the space, got rid of all of his old crappy furniture, and like made it our place. And like, honestly, this last 6 months has been really the moment where it's been like, holy shit, I got a team, I got my home, I got my locker room. You know? And in order to grow a team, in order to build an awesome team, you got to have a good locker room. Yeah. And that's what it's all about. That's why it's, you know, team is also cool for that reason.
Yeah, definitely. No, when I walked in, it was like I could feel your brand. Like there's a brand presence there. There's
cool. Yeah.
There's an appeal to it. What's one system or strategy that's changed everything for you or for team builders?
Honestly, the sticky operating system, that whiteboard that you would see on the wall. Yeah. I mean that's the answer. You can't fathom how much that's done for us. And honestly, like we had an opportunity. The Cedar Falls High School is getting built. Story construction out of Story, Iowa, Ames area, was running that project. Trevor was teaching his class. I had some of my students were interns on that project. We got to go tour their job site. Trailer, their job site superintendent was super open, gave us all the insights. We had like an hour meeting with him about it, and we're able to just like pepper him with questions. We went to their location, saw their headquarters. They were so open about it. Abundance mindset. It was awesome. And I'm like, guys, like nobody else in the residential world has anything like this. And you know, the way they had it built was very commercial, you know, it was just like huge scale. So how to like take that huge scale and, you know, basically dumb it down into residential world is what we did. We tried their way. We made tons of iterations to get it to work for us. And, you know, I could talk about this. Like, this is my jam.
Yeah.
And I have a, you know, that teaching background for me. I taught a class, construction entrepreneurship. It was a class that I created at UNI, and I got to do it my last semester. And after that, UNI and I departed ways. And a part of my passion at UNI was pouring in and teaching the students. I hated the red tape. I hated the bureaucracy. I hated, you know, grading papers. But I love teaching students and getting them excited about building their own company or entrepreneurship or whatever. So that was where my passion was, and why I stuck around at UNI for so long. But here I am, and I got this opportunity now to teach everybody else this system, and I've come up with a course. I teach a course about it. I love basically spilling all the team builder nuggets and processes and everything, because it's worked for me, and I know it'll work for others. And both Trevor and Trevor's starting to get into some of that with me, but we're building that. And that's probably one of the new fun things that we got going on. Like, we have the operating entities that kick ass, and we have some super cool A players coming on board to really operate those as Trevor and I continue to level up. And, you know, part of that leveling up is impacting the industry. Both he and I have passion to do that. It's like we both have said, it's bigger than us at this point. For our business, it's about the team, but for the industry, it's about the whole team of entrepreneurs. The guys out there that are, you know, thinking about jumping full-time, doing it for themselves, do it. Like, we can support you, right? We could tell you all our trials and tribulations. But also the guys that have maybe been in business for 10 years, but they feel like they've been doing the same year 10 times in a row, right? They've never been able to grow or get past whatever it is, and they don't know what the bottleneck is. Like, I guarantee this system for you in 90 days could get you off the tools with the right people in the right seats, and this system paired with it. Yeah. It's a huge delegation and automation system that, honestly, Trevor and I have been operating with whiteboards for a long time. We actually built the whiteboard before we went and saw a story. And so, like, when we saw it, we were like, holy shit, like, this is...
It all came together.
Dude. Yeah. We were so ready for it. And it's funny, you know, I'm very spiritual. I feel like God works in those ways where, like, right at the right moment is when he provides, you know. And I think for us, it was just the timing was so perfect. And honestly, yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how perfect it was for us at the time. We were pivoting. We were just, I could go on and on about what that thing's done for us. And I know that it will impact other businesses. And that's why it's our duty to get out there and help other businesses with it too.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I wish I would have been able to take that construction entrepreneurship.
You didn't get to take that?
I didn't. I wasn't in that semester. No, I'm pretty sure I graduated by then.
But We call it the sticky operating system. It's a whiteboard, operates with sticky notes. It's very systematic in how it operates. It's like a big rock crusher, taking boulders to rocks to sand, very granular in your activities when you're starting projects. Really runs the pre-construction process, the procurement process, the communication with homeowners. It has processes in it built for that. And we teach it through a course we call the Construction Entrepreneur Operating Systems. ConstructionEOS.com is the website. And it's basically an 8-week to 12-week cohort, depending on how ingrained you want us to be, to do it with you, do it for you. And we help build the system for you. It's a framework, but we cater it to each individual business. There's electricians, there's landscapers, there's big GCs. There's different business facets, and it has to be catered to each business a little bit, but the framework in and of itself is the genius part of it, packaged with other things that we help and provide and assist with.
Yeah. That's awesome. So when's the next cohort? Is it
starts April 28th? I think it's a Monday. Not this upcoming Monday, but the Monday after, yeah.
How many people are signed up? Or how many can you handle at a time?
I like to limit it at 10. I've never actually hit 10. It's still kind of new and in its infancy, but it's picking up momentum fast. A lot of people, there's some word of mouth going around locally about it. But yeah, it's still a passion project. So it's also like a little baby infancy, but that's what I pulled towards. Yeah. And it is fun and exciting, and I enjoy that aspect to teach and grow and impact the industry in a big way.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. It is awesome.
So if you're not signed up yet,
that's right.
Where do they go?
ConstructionEOS.com, and there's a book a call link, and that's linked to my calendar. You can get on a 30-minute call. I troubleshoot your business. I try to drive results in that business, and I determine whether we're a good fit to work together. If, there's some guys that maybe are a little too new, that aren't quite ready yet. Almost like the ideal candidate is someone that has, 3 to 10 employees is like really poised, but I have guys in it that are like running at chaos with 20 to 30 employees. Those guys are the ones that have the biggest impact because they're ready. Right. But I think starting when you start to have a little bit of a team, if you can build that foundation, it's critical. Yeah. If you're just a one-man band, it's not really set up for just the one-man band. It's meant for when you have a team and you're starting to grow and you have roles and responsibilities at different facets along the way. And yeah, I can drive the most impact. For the more people you have, the bigger the impact. But if you feel your operation is chaos, if you're still on the tools as the founder, it's poised to help you get off the tools, have an impact on your team, have an impact on your family. Like it's bigger than just like you, but it's built for the founder to help grow the business and grow the team as well. It's huge accountability, delegation, but also like empowering the team that you have with their skill sets. So
yeah, people see the brand, they see the beautiful homes, the beautiful projects that you guys complete. They don't always see what it took to get there, what it took to get to that level. I want to dig into that side of the business that doesn't make it onto social media, like the hidden hustle. So what's something that people don't see about your work that, takes the most out of you?
That takes the most out of me? I'm a firm believer in, this mantra that I think maybe is a little overused, but that how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So if you want to be this top level business owner, you should also be a top level dad and a top level husband, and if you're going to be a top level business owner, you need a top level team. So you got to pour just as much as you do into the business and your family, like into your team. And when you get to 30 employees or more, or even 10 or more, like, and your job and your family, that's hard to do. But there are times when, sometimes it's sacrificing one for the other because I can't put the kids down tonight because I have to have this critical phone call with this employee because he's going through something or she's going through something or whatever that may be. So a lot of what probably people don't see, and that's part of one of my passions is the people of my business, and even in the recruiting side of people who aren't in my business, like I enjoy the people side. And so one of the things that people aren't going to see is, the relationships that I have behind the closed doors of the business that are after hours or before hours, or, dealing with the employee that's going through a tough time, being there for them. Like those are the impactful moments. Those are it's like, as a business owner, you can see your employees as dollars or you can see them as humans. And I choose to see them as humans. And so it's like, yes, pay is one thing, and there's market rates that set some of those conditions, but your A performers you're going to treat really well. And I feel like I had a team of all A performers, so I'd have to treat all of them well. And how do I do that? I like to get on the phone with them. I like to check in with them. Honestly, in the last 2 years, I've fallen in that, where I have, because I'm not as close to my Iowa team, but I've had a new Florida team that I'm starting to pour into, and so it's hard. But that's probably the piece that people don't see behind closed doors is, the impact that I'm trying to have with my guys to really, not necessarily like that they're sons or anything, but I want to be there for that.
Yeah.
Not just for, I'm not seeing just as a paycheck, I got to pay this guy or whatever. Like, I wanted to win at life. I wanted to be a kick-ass dad. I wanted to be a kick-ass husband. I wanted to be a kick-ass carpenter. So there's some stories that just happen along the way that it's just like, once you really know a guy, man, that's what it's all about. And it takes a level to get to that. Like, you gotta want it. You gotta want that mentorship from a leader, and a leader's gotta want to give that to, a mentee, if you will.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't have that relationship with every single one. Maybe they're just not ready yet. Timing's a big piece of that. But the ones that want it and seek it out, I'm very open with them, and I'm there for them all the time.
Is there any way you can create that desire in a way, or fabricate it to make them desire any kind of
No, I mean,
mentorship?
I feel like God is going to put them, those things are out of my control.
Mm-hmm.
That's up to him. And if I'm the one he's chosen to be put in that relation, or in that instance, which he does often for me, that's when impact is made. There's many people inside the walls at Team Builders that their lives have changed because of this team. And you can't really put a price on that. You can't make that happen. It comes in opportunities, it comes in moments, and it's just about being present in those moments. And that's one thing. When my original CEO mantra was just like this crushed skulls mantra. That's how I started. And I was an intimidating dude. And I could, not necessarily that I'm blowing up at any time, but I could be, very stubborn, etc. And my mentality, through a lot of work on myself to become that leader that is more servant type leadership, has come with foundation in faith. Got baptized in 2021, 22, and that changed my life in a lot of ways, and I became free in that moment, and let go of a lot of things. And since then, it's just been blessed with a lot of things in my marriage, same for relationships with my kids, relationships with my team, business, the path, the journey that I'm on, the success that it can appear that way on the outside, but every day's a grind, and every day you got to enjoy the journey. If you enjoy the journey, then that's success. in my opinion. And I enjoy the journey, and I love what I do, and I love the people that I get to do it with. And God continues to bless me with those moments all the time. And I like being there for my team. I like being the one that they can lean on. I don't wish to have those conversations all the time, but when they arise, like, that's part of my gig. And people don't see that, but I love doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I had that with students too, honestly, at UNI. Like, I could point to many students, that I had good relationships like that with, that we could have conversations like that, and those conversations don't happen with the typical instructor or a typical person. You got to first be that person to be able to have those conversations.
Mm. No, I can attest, it really came through that you cared about the students. And like going to any other class, it was, you sit there, you listen to the lecture, you do the homework, but there's never like the professor just didn't have that one-on-one connection where it's like
no emotion.
Like you met us at the door and you knew everybody by name, and you knew some things about everybody, and so keeping that
and making it fun, right? Yeah, I try to do that. I mean, and that's back to the mantra of how you do one thing is how you do everything, and it starts with yourself. You got to have a full cup first, and then if you're full, you can overflow into those other things of your business and relationships with your team and your wife and your kids.
How do you stay focused or keep yourself from drifting if there's ever a time, keeping yourself in that mentality?
There's always drifts. I mean, life is full of ebbs and flows, and I think you have to realize that there's different seasons of life, and every 90 days I feel like it's a different season. Right now I'm in a season, I injured my leg. I haven't worked out in a couple months, and I just feel like POS, health-wise. And it's just that moment of having to slow down and, rest up. And I think that there's seasons of craziness in business and busyness. And then there's also seasons of crazy, focusing on intimacy with the family and, going on that vacation or doing that date night or whatever that may be. I try to always have something on the calendar when it comes to that. But I think it's a good thing to be intentional about, right? When we have to self-reflect, doing journal, exercises, actually thinking critically about how am I performing? You can have a scorecard in business tracking business metrics, but what is your scorecard for yourself? Are you judging your life based solely on how much money you make on a salary? Is that how you see yourself? Are you just a number like that? Or
where it's coming from?
Yeah. And so I think it's going back to, what is the scorecard for your life? And, I've worked with a coach, in the past, and there's 5 territories: self, health, relationships, wealth, and business, and they kind of go in that order. You got to be, mentally, spiritually healthy. You got to be physically healthy yourself, and then you can focus on, being there for everyone else in those relationships. And then wealth and business kind of come, on the back end. If you focus the other way, if you focus more on business first, you can get to the top, but you got to the top and no one's there with you. Mm-hmm. What's the point of that? Yeah. And then you also are overweight and out of shape, and because you focus so much on business, you didn't give enough time and attention to yourself. And then, hey, I've made all this money, but now I'm 55 years old and I can retire early, or 50 and I can retire early, but I'm, this blob of a man, and I don't, I've been through a divorce and this, that, and the other. You don't want that, right? So focus on yourself, get to be the right person, the right man, spiritually, mentally, and physically, and then you could be there for everybody else and actually focus on, once you start to have that stack too, if you're in good shape, you're, there mentally, you're focused on doing the right things, you're feeling full, then going and pouring into everybody else actually becomes really easy. Going and pouring into your business becomes a lot easier. Mm-hmm. And then you feel like a warrior. That's what I try to aspire to be. And I don't feel that way right now, physically. But I know I'll get there. It's a season of life I'm going through, just, resting on my leg and trying to get back to normal. Yeah. Reflecting on everything is, you don't always take the time to do that, and there's this concept of gap versus gain. And, it's good, I think as men, you can always be looking at the gap, of like, oh, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not where I want to be. And then life becomes this whole like story of like never having what you thought you were going to have. And, that kind of like carrot's always in front of you and you're always chasing it. But every time you grow in income, you move the target and now you want more and you want more. And it's like, you got to be satisfied a little bit with where you're at.
I feel like I balance between those so often where it's like there's so much that I want to do and so much that I want to become, but I don't know.
There's one of my favorite isms, I call them, is like men typically overestimate what they can accomplish in a year, but they underestimate what they can accomplish in 5 years. Right? So if you would have told me 5 years ago that I'd be where I am today, I'd have been like, holy shit, like that sounds crazy. That's a lot, But every year when I look at trying to accomplish a certain goal, it's like I seem to always fall short with where I think I should be or where I want to be. And that's kind of that, the gap. And then, but like reflecting back on how far you've come, like even like just today I was running our quarterly meeting with my whole team and just like reflecting, we actually went back and looked at our original 2021 like vision and what our uniques were about, what made us us, and where we wanted to be in some of the 3-year vivid picture that we were talking about. What like where do we think we'll be in 3 years? If this is 5 years, what does 3 years look like? And reading those just was like comical,
right?
Of where we were back then. But like, it's like, guys, let's go back and look at what we thought we were 5 years ago. And here we are about to accomplish this mission. Remember when we set this 10-year goal, how crazy we thought that was? And I'm in a room with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them have been with us for 3 years or more. 5 of them basically for all 8 years, damn near, to be honest. And, they were there the day that we set those goals and they remembered how hairy, big goals those felt like.
Right.
Here we are, like pulling it into, it's coming to fruition. And just, it's good to reflect back. You got to take the time, slow down to do that, or else you're always chasing the gap and you're never looking at the gain that you've had.
Good insight.
Sort of here.
Was there ever a point where you felt like you had to fake it, whether it was like in the beginning or like while you're still figuring it out, or did you always kind of have that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely getting out of the gates was faking it,
Yeah.
I had the construction engineering degree. I had industry experience with, bigger GCs, bigger jobs. But then when you go out on your own and you're just, an entrepreneur and, I'd done remodels on my own house. I grew up, my dad was a car salesman and my mom was a hairdresser, and my mom was more handy than my dad. I didn't, they bought me a tool though every Christmas, ironically enough, which is just like they wanted me to have this sweet toolbox, I guess, and I'm old. But it came, I still have a lot of those tools today and they've all come in handy. But like I didn't grow up with a carpenter dad.
Right.
Or, but my dad was always like, go to school, get a good job, be better off than than the opportunity that I've given you. And, construction became my path along the way, just discovering that, I was my own journey of that was in and of itself unique and not having any sort of foundation. So I've definitely like felt I faked it along the way. Even even through engineering school, I don't think I ever was fully confident in myself to go and be like in my head initially in engineering school, I was like, I'm going to build stadiums. I wanted to build the Target Field and the US Bank. I wanted to build those big stadiums. But then, you start to fall in love and then you're, like, man, I'm going to want a family. Like, if you're building stadiums, you got to be moving all over the place, because you're not building stadiums every year in the same spot, But anyways, like I remember like going through those motions, but like I always had big dreams, but I don't think I ever really felt like I, was like, oh, that's my thing. Like I actually bounced from job to job after college. a few times, and I only ever lasted like 2 years before I was just like, man, I'm not cut out for this, or this isn't me. And I feel like even at like you and I was there for 5 years, but I was like, this is me. Like I could teach. I enjoy this. You know, the red tape and the bureaucracy didn't really, but I could deal with that because I love teaching, you know. And then team builders at the same time, like when I got into flipping houses and I got into, you know, doing projects, like I was probably like faking it to a degree, but like I felt like it was a little in my wheelhouse. Like I was, you know, a carpenter right after, like even in high school, like right after high school, I'd be started to become a carpenter working with a buddy's dad. Um, and after that, like I worked with him for 3 years. And then, you know, when I went to college, I was always doing side jobs. Ended up starting a drywall and paint company in college and did a lot of work at the university and for other, like even just like people throughout the university, like at their houses and stuff. Um, and so like I enjoyed some of the hands-on stuff, but as I like got older and just got into more of the business side and just kind of kept pouring into education even after college, like always reading books, um, wanting to be somebody, but not necessarily had found my way yet. And when Trev came along, it was just like that was God's plan all along, you know. So, but definitely faked it up until that point. And then when I finally got into like residential stuff, I was like, this is my jam,
Yeah.
you know. And then it was just a matter of figuring out, you know, how to be somebody in that space and, you know, still be me. And then you feel this culture that we have, this brand, like that's who I am. Like I'm wearing, I am a big part of that. Like that's because that's who I am. That's what kind of person I am. I'm a little loud, you know, like if you see our truck wraps and you walk in here, it's a little loud.
A little bit, little bit.
And it's,
I enjoy
it's kind of just who I am. And, you know, Trev too. And a lot of the guys we have. So that's all part of it, but didn't know who I was and was faking it definitely until then.
Yeah. Was there ever anybody that doubted you or told you it wouldn't work?
I don't necessarily have anyone particular I could just call out and said like that I was an idiot or anything, but like definitely some critics, definitely some doubters, and you know, I've been in entrepreneurship type stuff early on, and some of those didn't work out. So you actually start to doubt yourself, you know, when the first few didn't go your way. But life's about, you know, getting knocked down, getting back up, just keep going. And I mean, there's probably one thing that really resonated with me, and yeah, I won't go and tell that story and call that person out, but I mean, it's more of in the back of my head. And I think that's maybe more of a story really that I was telling myself, that I allowed myself to have that chip on my shoulder, but it's gone now. But just in thinking back and trying to think, there was one thing that really always motivated me from somebody. And I think it's good to use that for fuel for a certain period of time, but before too long, it becomes a distraction. And then it's just like, what are you doing it for? To prove somebody else wrong? Like, it's a good motivator to get going, but you don't want that to be your stitch the whole way, you know?
Yeah.
I grew out of that.
Yeah. What mindset shifts have helped you grow the most through your career?
Mindset shift. Honestly, going back to the, you know, self first was a big mindset shift. I was always building the business first, sacrificing my health, my family, my relationships, trying to be that earner, right? Where the dollar amount that I was making defined me. And when I was able to, and that was kind of the whole part of the baptism thing and committing to Christ a little bit, was just like getting rid of that weight and being a different breed and type of, you know, I didn't like that was who I was, and I didn't have, I just needed that clean slate for myself, and yeah, committing more to being the healthy person spiritually, mentally, physically for myself, doing it for me first, which is a little selfish, but I think it's good to be a little selfish to, you know, you got to be right with yourself, you know, before you can really, like, if you hate yourself and hate what you do and hate your life in a lot of ways, and you're not connected with who you are, how are you going to go and be an awesome dad or an awesome husband, or an awesome business owner?
Mm.
So like that was a big mindset shift for me, and I paid a lot to realize that. I went through, some really high dollar coaching to figure that out, and that was honestly really profound to me, is that mindset shift. And then once you know it, it's like, holy shit, like that's like spot on. Why did I ever think anything different? And I think in today's society and world, it's like you got all these influencers that are out, like it's just like, oh my gosh, like I could do that, or I want to be that. But it's like, if you're not first set on who you want to be and who you are, then you might just be going up the hill the wrong way. So slowing down to figure myself out for a few years was very, very healthy for me. And that was like 2020 to 2022 time period for me. And then even from 22 to now, it's still like committing to that, being that person, because that's who I've always wanted to be. And I just didn't know how to be that until I switched that, philosophy, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any quotes or scriptures that like really resonated through that whole shift?
I have a couple in like but like, love others as yourself, is a big one for me. And I think, that's part of that servant leadership,
right,
for everyone else.
Yeah.
That's one that is definitely on my wall. But yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily have like a quote from a book or anything. Obviously, that mantra of how you do one thing is how you do everything. I really resonate with that. And I feel like I think Warren Buffett says another one that's like, it's the story of him basically on a golf course, and somebody bets him like, $1,000,000 to 1. Like if you don't get a hole in one, you owe me $1. But if you do get a hole in one, he's like, I'll give you $1,000,000. And Warren Buffett doesn't take him up on it. And the guy's like, what are you like? You had so much to gain. He's like, yeah, but like my odds of actually hitting a hole in one are way less than 1 in 1,000,000. Like, done in small things, done in big things is what he says. And so it's almost like someone as relentless about investments like that,
right,
is the reason why Warren Buffett has what Warren Buffett has today. And that's because if you're small and small and little things, done in small things, you're going to be done in big things. And that's back to that mantra of how you do one thing is how you do everything. So, it's definitely a thing you gotta, like, if you're going to be relentless about it, and you could live that life as like a founding principle, like that's super cool. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of part of the balance,
Yeah. Team Builders has a really strong presence online. What was that always intentional?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, we had one of my students at UNI, Austin O'Neill, and he came on with us really early. I think he actually left UNI. Yeah, he joined us full time, and pretty early on. So he was probably sophomore, junior, but dropped out and came and worked for us. And we noticed the talent in him, and his ability to do the creative tech side of stuff, and also like he was in the field. But super cool story with him. I would love for him to be on the podcast with you and tell his journey a little bit too, because he's always wanted to share cool things about, his path to where he's gotten. He's going to be coaching a lot of those people in that CEO's program too, on the marketing side. Like he's super powerful, and everything he's learned at Team from a marketing aspect to then go and help other contractors do the same. But he started in the field, was a student of mine. And we were very intentional, like, dude, we want you to be the guy that's taking photos and posting them to social and recording the videos, like going live. And then that grew from him being, like 80%, labor carpentry to like 20%, marketing to, eventually like 10% every quarter on quarter, to the point where he's 100%, by 2020, he was full-time marketing guy. And today, like, he's got a team underneath him. He's got virtual assistants that do a lot of our videography. Like he's got processes and systems. He's got his whole content library, stuff he's doing with our website, working with the website team. He's just kind of this orchestrator. And, we've poured a lot into him owning that position, where today I couldn't imagine life without him on our team. And we have Aldo too, who's in the Iowa office. O'Neill moved to Florida, so it's really cool having him there. And I think it's kind of that, like Elon Musk, when he's building Tesla, he's like putting the designers and the engineers in the same room, right? Like those guys need to have cohesion. And putting O'Neill, which is a marketing seat, into a new Florida territory, which is trying to grow its sales, right, is really key, where he's already got kind of that mesh with the Iowa team and able to like grow that. But like having him there with me, boots on the ground, is really when we started to take off there as well. So I believe same thing for marketing and sales, right? Being in the same room, same office, like, hey, O'Neill, like,
right,
and then we just started deck and fence there too. And now the deck and fence guy, who's the sales guy, is sitting in the same room as O'Neill, right? And we have estimating and design in the same office here, which is also another one of those strong ties. And yeah, it's just a very intentional thing from the beginning, I would say, when we realized that was one of O'Neill's strengths. But I don't think we would have necessarily came to that conclusion without O'Neill being there. Like I would always maybe, post a photo once a week on some progress early on, but eventually it became like an everyday thing. And from there, now we have multiple Facebook pages, multiple websites, multiple territories, and it's cool to see that looking back.
Yeah. Do you have a specific marketing strategy that you've been, following?
See, that's why you gotta have O'Neill on the podcast.
That's his role.
That dude will riff on that all day. He absolutely does. I mean, you could go and I know we have an awesome scorecard. The marketing equation is really, to us, a function of like, what target do we want to hit top line? So if I were to take top line revenue, let's say we want to hit 10 million. Okay, well, what's your average ticket size? Let's say our average job size is 100K, which may be close to accurate, given that we got some jobs that are, over $1 million and, new homes and, renovations, large renovations, but also we do small decks and fences. So anyway, so let's say it's 100K. Well, what's, 10 million divided by 100K? Be like 1,000, maybe, right? Am I right? 3 zeros? No, I think it's 100. You need 100 jobs times 100K will get you 10 million. All right. So if I got 100 jobs, all right, what's my close rate? Right. If my close rate is
working backwards. Yeah.
Yeah. We're just working backwards. Right. So if I need 100 jobs and my close rate is, let's say 30%, well, I need to divide that. So now I'm going, 30% of 100K would be basically 300, not 100K, 100 would be 300 leads. Okay. Well, if I need 300 leads, what's my strategy to get that? So it's basically working from top line revenue using average job size to get the number of leads you need. Right. And you're using your close rate to get the number of leads you need.
Yeah.
If you know your number of leads, now you can go and figure out, okay, now you start to track how many leads you're currently getting. What is your pace? And if you have a good array of data, like I've tracked my leads for a whole year, and maybe last year we had 200 leads. Well, how do we grow that by 50%?
Right.
Well, last year we didn't do any paid ads. So by using paid ads, maybe we can get that, right? Or if we were all paid ads last year and we spent, 20K, we need to at least time and half that budget, right? So it's usually like you need a little bit of metrics, some historical metrics to get to that, but you just got to start tracking those numbers first. And then you can use different strategies on marketing, whether that be paid ads, print, digital, being in a magazine, being in like a neighborhood magazine. Well, those could be, a good starting place. Truck wraps, just like getting more brand awareness too.
Yeah.
Yard sign, like I always tell people, grassroots marketing. Yard signs, we call it a 5x5x10. So 5 to the left, 5 to the right, and 10 across the street. So we'll dump koozies and a little flyer. Hey, we're in the neighborhood. If we're parked on the wrong side of the street and, you can't move your car, like call us, let us know. Like almost like engaging with them, and we give them a free koozie. I've had multiple people still to this day send me a picture like that they live in the neighborhood that we're all of a sudden in, and they're like, dude, got this in the mail, super cool, like, oh, love this touch. And so that's kind of like a grassroots approach. Is a vehicle wraps, yard signs, 5x5x10. That right there should get you enough leads to get started. And then from there, it's like, okay, now I'm growing and scaling. I have more crews. I have more talent, whatever. Now I need to maybe, now I'm working to develop a website, have a social presence, do some more Google paid ads. I want to have some 5-star reviews. Yeah.
Where do you think it's like the most of your leads come from?
I know where the most of our leads come from. It's truck wraps and yard signs. Over 30%. And
do you have like a discovery or like a question that you ask them like every single lead to know exactly?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You got to ask that. If you're not asking that, you're doing yourself a disservice. You got to know where your leads are coming from.
Yeah.
If someone fills out a website lead, it's obviously they came to the website, but how did you find out about us? Right. Did you come to the website?
Questions on the form.
You found us on Google and you clicked on our website and you filled out a form. Did you come to us because you saw a truck wrap and the truck wrap had the website on it? Like, how did you, come to the website?
Has there ever been a strategy that you tried that didn't work?
From a marketing perspective, I won't say that it didn't work. There's just some that it's really hard to discover the return. Like we did a billboard one year and we thought it was cool. Because it was like, the one billboard that we thought anybody would ever look at in Cedar Falls, and we were on it. But, and we were in a magazine too. And it's just, and those are like, those magazines have their own metrics and they can share with you, what you can expect and who gets it, and you're in the right neighborhoods that you want. Like if it all meshes, like it's hard to really gauge. For us, we ended up terminating those and not doing them or re-upping on them. One, because they're hard to track, but two, because we were already feeling like we were getting enough leads and we had enough traction that it was like, do we really need to be going and spending more money on this? And every year you get to a point where it's like, you got to, hey, we're maybe a little fluffy. We need to cut some overhead and we need to be more, diligent and tighten some lug nuts, if you will. So it's not that they didn't work. Like I definitely think they drove visibility, brand awareness, but there's no call to action that somebody could click on your billboard or or the magazine. So it's like, how do you really? Yeah.
Makes sense. How do your Google ads perform? How many leads are you getting from Google?
Honestly, our Google organic is pretty good. So we're not doing, I think we do paid ads for decks and fences. It's just nature of the business, just like roofing leads and siding leads. But Google organic is pretty powerful for us. I want to say probably in like the 10 to 15% range. Just off the top of my head last time I looked. But I know we get a report that shows like our Google ranking for certain metrics, keywords. So if you were to look up deck builder near me, fence builder near me, and Cedar Falls, Waterloo, we would show up top 3 every time. And then you kind of get into the nuances when it comes to custom build. Is someone looking for a kitchen? Are they typing custom build? What are they calling it? Are they calling it a renovation? Or are they calling it a remodel? Do I want a home addition, or do I want are you calling it an extension? Like that's just, what are you really trying to get? And so, we have certain things that we are like, we want to show up number one for that. And then it's about building out your website and getting Google to trust you. And the Google algorithm recently changed. And so actually making those adjustments on the website is key. And having someone dedicated to that knows that space well is also very key to success. O'Neill's dedicated to building out the website and controlling the developer. And the developer is responsible for knowing the Google algorithm. Building that out.
The paid ads, though, does he manage those too?
He does. I don't know if it's in conjunction with the website or what he does, but I think that's one of the things that we actually just talked about today is, wanting somebody to maybe handle that aspect. So can talk.
Have you ever tried any social ads on Meta?
We did early on. I don't know that we've done so lately. I'd be interested to see what return on investment that would bring. But we can talk about that too. But I know we did early on, and I think in deck and fence it would work. Custom build, I'd be really skeptical, just because it's, that's something that people aren't necessarily like, oh, this guy on Facebook says he builds additions, but I think there's awareness that you can get from that because a lot of people are on social,
Yeah. Have you ever gotten any leads from just organic posting?
Like personal?
Just like your socials for team builders sites. You post a lot of content. Has that driven any leads, or do you see it more as building brand and
we see it as building brand and social credibility? But also, we came from a time where we were doing a lot of Facebook ads, and we were proposing like, need an addition, call us today. Need a new home, call us today. Like that kind of stuff. Need a new fence, call us. Like where you'd show a cool picture of a fence or a before and after or a cool little video and be like, a little call to action at the end. And, you could maybe get a call or two from that, but it's also another thing that's kind of hard to track on the organic side. Paid ads, somebody clicked this and called that number, and that's
easily trackable. Yeah.
So,
yeah. What jobs would you say you'd like the most of? Like, what is your bread and butter, or something that you'd like to see more traction?
The more custom, the more we thrive. Full custom home is definitely our favorite. We're getting more and more into that space. We're going to start, building some speculative homes and then converting to custom is kind of the goal. But on the custom build side, so deck, fence, custom build being our niche, the custom build side wants to build custom homes. The deck and fence side, we love custom, we call them dope ass decks. So the more custom it is on the deck side, the more we're going to thrive. Not saying like the cookie cutter ones don't excite us. Like those are definitely like, we have our brand system of like how we build a deck. That's like how, the team builder way. And then on the fence side, like we do some cool stuff on fence. More and more people are starting to drive their posts like us, which is just nature of people wanting to be like the best, and so there's not necessarily anything there that stands out as like, oh, we want to do chain link or we want to do wood. Like the more custom it is, like we can do some really cool wood stuff, like the cap and trim, just different types of patterning on wood. Like I would say wood is something that we're really good at. Chain link is something we're amazing at. Vinyl is a territory we would love to grow more in, but that's also like all of them. Fences is just more of a competitive market too. But I definitely think like we are very systemized in our way. We eliminate callbacks. Like honestly, I don't remember the last time we had a callback for a fence. We have a guy on the team who's a hell of an installer, very meticulous. Same on the deck and fence side, like all across the board, custom build, deck, fence, and just like even on all the way up to the leadership. Like we've got the guys that are in the right seats, that love what they do, they're meticulous, and they enjoy what they're doing, so they do it at a high level. And we're a small team, but we're a high performing team. And when we put guys on your deck, like they have a passion for that trade, or they have a passion for that process that they're running. And so you're gonna get that team builder experience of like people that love what they do and are great at doing it when you have any interaction with us. And so that's what it's all about, is having a team of 8 players, and those 8 players being in the right seats to dominate. So that's what we got.
Yeah. So what's the next 5 years look like?
Oh man, that's loaded. The custom build side is in a little bit of a pivot right now to do more custom home stuff. Not that we're exiting out of the remodel space, but it's trying to cater more of the business to do some of that, build new, but also be in the remodel space for retail clients. So kind of a, more of a shift to some, we'd love to develop a neighborhood, buy a good chunk of land, develop it, and actually build all the homes in that neighborhood. And, but like, not like the typical run of the mill track home. Like we're talking like quality over quantity. Like I'd love to buy, the 6-house cul-de-sac with decent sized lots. You know what I mean? Like that to me, and like instead of 2x4 walls on the exterior, do 2x6, well insulated, really solid, HVAC systems, maybe some home automation stuff, energy efficient, um, you know, just like that type of, and there's quality finishes, like durable, built to last, impact rated, you name it. That's a big thing in Florida, impact rated. But just like that quality standard and in the speculative space, but like also like people knowing the team builder brand, the team builder level of quality and the standard that we set, and having that be on the forefront of people's minds. So when they come and they're looking at a home, and if this one here is in rough end, but like I want that home because I know Team Builders is building that, and I know I can expect quality, and then they can be a little bit in on the finishes of what that is going to look like. But building out that level of the business is kind of next for us on the custom build side. Deck and fence as a whole initiative in and of itself, we look to have Des Moines and Cedar Rapids locations here in the next 2 to 3 years. And then go statewide from there. We'd love to be building decks on Okoboji, Clear Lake, those are places near to my hometown, but all the way, south in Des Moines and over to Council Bluffs. So we want to have the whole state of Iowa, both deck and fence, and just dominate it at a high level, but also be vertically integrated with our own product line. So not necessarily having the deck board that everybody else could do, or the vinyl that everybody else can do, but having our own line, like that's where we're going. And we're looking at a territory right now to move our office and warehouse locations and vertically integrate there too. Right now our office is here and our warehouse is in Waterloo. So we're not really vertically integrated there. So it's just like bringing everything to be more meshed, synergized, systemized is one of our core values. We honestly, that's probably like the most important one. And so doing everything that we're talking about is a process of that and a function of that. And then even in Florida, we want to run up and down the west coast of Florida. Right now, Tampa and Fort Myers would be like secondary operations. We're out of Sarasota, so that's an hour north and an hour south. But we're not going and adding a ton of locations. We want to actually service those locations out of the current homes that we're in. So if we build a little bit of a distribution and a source here, we want to be able to add a key sales general manager who can work out of the home office, keep overhead low, keep prices low, be very competitive, but do it in a quality way, because we want to make quality the standard and affordable, right? So doing that, you got to stay lean on overhead and building that out with right fit people and salesmen, where they maybe come to Cedar Falls once a week, once every other week, or once a month to do kind of that cultural check-in and make sure like everything's good. They're still in virtual meetings, like ever since COVID, right? We're all
right
integrated online, but we want to do more. And when we do more, that's where vertically integrating with the product starts to make sense, because it's like I can't go and bring in a whole distribution center if I'm just doing Cedar Falls.
Right.
But if I run the whole state of Iowa, and we want to, Trev and I both from Mason City, Cedar Rapids is right down the road. Des Moines is a big market. Quad Cities, we have a lot of people from that area as well. Dubuque, Fort Dodge, like you name it, like serving all of those, and then just having a crew in each location that dominates and people that want to be a part of that big mission too. So honestly, like that's a super exciting mission in and of itself. And then you got the custom build team over here trying to, build some neighborhoods and do some cool stuff. And then, honestly over here is the sticky operating system. We're working on an app to develop into that space, and that whole coaching component where we want to help grow other entrepreneurs and impact the industry. So those are kind of the big three.
That's the 5-year goal. That's kind of legacy. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, all of those are already starting to happen.
Yeah.
But it's brick by brick, and I think slow is fast in some of those big moves. And honestly, what we've been able to do in the past 5 years to do that again in the next 5 years, to have a big, hairy goal, those three are big, hairy in and of themselves. Yeah. And then it's about having right players, dominating each of those, and, helping Trev and I get above the businesses a little bit so we can pour into the people and not be so integrated in the day-to-day. but also like getting down into different facets to help systemize and build, and like having your own distribution center doesn't happen overnight. Like that's a big mission. Building a spec neighborhood doesn't happen overnight. That's a big mission. Coaching and impacting a whole industry and having an app and doing all that, that's a big mission. Right? And we have a great start on that. We're actually almost done with our beta version of the app. Sticky OS is the app.
Yeah.
So those three, honestly, you can feel, I feel sometimes spread thin, and I definitely want like the next 5 years to be more about laser focus. And so when I say laser focus, I'm going to be bringing on key members to run those facets, me being more a part of the coaching program and the sticky operating system, and, building out the impact across the industry, and then like Trevor running a lot of the operating systems as the COO. So it's starting to like account, like the org chart is coming together, the mission's coming together. It's like, integrating that and filtering that into the team is a big mission too. So that's the next 5.
Yeah.
For us. Yeah.
What would you say, big picture, looking down the road, a little ways, looks like
10 to 20?
Yeah.
10 years, I see my oldest and Trev's kids starting to get into the business, and I'm excited about, like, honestly, all the kids that are part of Team Builders. There's so many where all the guys have their own kids. So I just, like, honestly would love it to be a family thing, a legacy that you can pass on, and would love to bring in a lot of the people that have helped us get here along the way, guys that have been here since the very beginning, bring them into ownership. Even 1% to 5%, and growing their, like, what they've invested in over time, giving that back, but also because we've grown it to a level that we can now serve them back because they've served us so much. So that's where my heart is. But Trevor and I'm never surprised how, we're not butting heads. It's more of just like, there's disagreements, or he may see one way, like I could be bringing in an AI executive to just come in for 2 days in July to our meeting, and he gave me some good pushback on it, and I was like, bro, like, this is what we need.
What's an AI executive look like?
It's just more of AI executive may be the wrong term, but we got an AI implementer, if you will, a guy that specializes in knowing what's going on out there, helps identify areas in your business that could be quick wins, and maybe puts together a development program to leverage AI more. And so right now, ChatGPT, Grok, those are the easy ones. We got the team using those things for, large language model type tasks, but it's just like, what API integrations, or even just like, one of the ones that we were talking about today is, somebody to answer the phones, like an AI that answers phones. And the big pushback is like, well, we don't want to lose the human touch. And I agree. I don't want to lose the human touch either. But if, all those supposed to be answering the phones, but he went to site to go, do a drone, and Buffalo's usually his backup, but Buffalo's on a fence consultation, and, somebody else is, like, there may not be, sometimes like you're in the office and it's like nobody was in here to answer the phones, or nobody was here to answer the phones after 5. A lot of people call after work, and then we're getting this pile of voicemails. Now we got to try to chase it. Like, how awesome would that be to just have this overflow AI that could be like, hey, I'm an AI assistant. I'm here to help. I just want to collect your information, make sure that the right person gets in contact with you, but I can get you into our system and into the queue, and, take care of 80% of the stuff, and the human will be in touch with you for the other 20. Like, how clutch would that be? And they can take information, and then they, enter it into our CRM, assign it to the right person. They collect the information, tell me about your project. They record the call, and it dumps like a little blurb into the software. And it's basically like you could press play and re-listen to that conversation as the salesperson if you really want to.
Right.
And AI today doesn't even sound like a robot. It sounds like a human.
Right.
So it's just like, my team was pushing back on me, and I totally get why, and I'm agreeing with them. Like, I don't want to lose the human touch either. I'd rather somebody answer the phone. But at the end of the day, after 5, some people call, and you're still missing them. Like, what if you capture them with AI, and then they had a better experience with AI than, because if you don't answer, they're calling the next guy. What if the next guy answers? There goes a $10,000 fence job or $25K deck.
Yeah.
whatever it may be, or the worst, the $1 million custom home, right? So leveraging AI is definitely like, if you're not doing that, you're going to be falling behind in today's world, right? And what AI is capable of, I didn't even know. I want to be educated. I'm going to be bringing in an expert to educate my whole team, not just me. Like, that's a very valuable exercise, in my opinion, as a founder. So I want that for my company.
Yeah, 100%. For someone just starting their own hustle, what's one piece of advice that you give?
Continuous learning, education, and like followed by action, though, right? Like, you don't just read to take in a bunch of information and not do anything with it. There are countless books I could point to where I read that book and then we did this, and then I read that book and then we did this. Like, every single book was followed by action. If you look at a book that I've read, it is filled with highlights in my notes. I write in the margins. I highlight the things that are in my head. I talk about where I'm at in those moments. If a thought comes up, I'll write it. And then when I go and review that book, which I'm not necessarily saying I do every single time, but there's a time where, like, if I read a book 5 years ago and I'm in a moment now in Sarasota where I'm doing the same thing, and I can go read that book I read 5 years ago when I was in the same kind of space that I'm in now, it's pretty cool to go back and just be like, oh shit, look at that, already highlighted with like the cliff notes and the margins. How awesome is that? I'm so thankful that I did that 5 years ahead of time. So be a continuous learner and take notes, reflect, journal about your thoughts, journal about where you're at and where you want to go, and put a vision board in front of you too, right? If you want to have the company that does X and you're doing Y, put X in front of you, right? Put it all over the place. I don't have my wallet on me, but I mean, I've wrote down in January 2022, I wrote down, where I wanted to be in 5 years. And honestly, some of the things that I put on there have already come to fruition. But it's like, it's in my wallet, it's on my computer, it's on my vision wall, it's on my mirror at my on my dresser, right? Like, put your goals in front of you and be a continuous learner.
Mm-hmm. What's something you wish you knew when you started?
Oh, dude. Honestly, finance. I didn't know what the hell a P&L was. I didn't know what a balance sheet was. I didn't know what a cash flow statement was. I lost, I think, as a business owner in construction, everybody is really good at production. They know the trade. They know the craft, right? They can do the work. That's usually how people get started. They start because they love construction. They start because nobody starts because they want to like own a construction business and be like this, like, I didn't necessarily start for that reason. I love the craft. I love building decks. Like, that was one of my favorite things, was the craft. And then it became bigger than that. And that's when I started to grow. And then I fell in love with business side, right? So, finance, though, was the thing that can kill you the fastest. Like, it's kind of that, food and water thing, right? If you're starved with both, which one kills you first? Lack of food or lack of water? Lack of water, right? Well, construction knowledge is food. Business knowledge, financial knowledge is water. If you don't have the water, you will die first. You can know everything about construction, but if you don't know shit about finance, then you could be going down a lot quicker than you know. And before you know it, the whole year just went by and you never took the time to look at your finances. And at the end of the year, you're counting your marbles and you got none. You got negative. That's a tough spot to be in, especially as a single trade entrepreneur.
Right.
So take the time. There's a book out there called Markup and Profit by Michael C. Stone. I actually just posted on all my socials, top 4 books I'd recommend to any construction entrepreneur just getting started. And Markup and Profit by Michael C. Stone, number 1, that is finance. That is water. How to win customers and keep them for life. That's a marketing book. There was Integrity Selling for the 21st Century, which is a sales book. It's about how to sell with integrity, how to sell the way people want to be sold to, and with dignity. Like, you're not doing it to get somebody, you know? You're doing it, you're trying to fulfill a need. Somebody has a need and you need to fill it. And if you fill it and you're, doing it in an honest way, honestly, you're going to win a lot of business, right? People tell me all the time, I'm just so glad you answered the phone and you set an appointment and you actually did what you said you were going to do. I was there. Like, how fucking hard is that? It's not hard at all. And then the last book, is The Road Less Stupid, which is like insights from the chairman of the board. Kind of like every single chapter is like 1 or 2 pages, and every single page is just like kicking the nuts. Like, wow, The Road Less Stupid. Like, I'm glad I read that book, and that's a book I reflect on at least once a year, usually before like an annual meeting with my team. And I can go back to that and the highlights and the notes, and every year it's just like, it's cool to write. I write with different ink every year too. So it's like multiple cases in that book. It's just like, holy shit. It's something that you read in 1 year. It's like, oh, that's not really a landing. But then a year or 2 down the road, you read it again. And it's like, that's what he was talking about.
Right.
Boom. There it is. And it's just insights, nuggets. Like, if you haven't read that book as an entrepreneur, you're not doing it right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Where can people follow along with team builders or get in touch?
Honestly, all my socials are Austin_Maginnis. So Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and then my Facebook is connected with my LinkedIn. So I have like a creator profile on Facebook, or connected with Instagram, but I have a creator profile on Facebook as well if you want to follow me there. Austin Maginnis. And then team builders, we have a Team Builders SRQ social, Facebook, and we have a Team Builders Limited, which is the Cedar Falls custom build, and then we have Team Deck and Fence. So those 3, and those all have there's a Pinterest page. Like, you can go to our Pinterest page and find all of our stuff, and it's an awesome library. Honestly, like, if you went to our inspiration board, it's basically, yeah, I mean, it is an inspiration board, and that's one of our mottos, is like, your inspiration lives here. If you come to this team, if you work with us, you're going to be inspired by just the way we live and the way we build where you live. So that's what we're about. And then the website, teambuilderslimited.com, teambuildersSRQ.com. And then the Team Deck and Fence website is actually teamdeckandfence.com, but I don't know if that's live yet. The Sarasota one is Sarasota Deck and Fence. There's Team Builders Decks, Team Builders plural, Decks plural, and then Team Builders Fences, both plural too. So we got a lot of websites, but like, there's a reason behind that. But yeah, Facebook is a great place, and I think a lot of that's tied into Instagram too. But we also have a YouTube channel. We got a guy, Deck Builder, Decks with Dan. He does a ton of stuff too. Super fun to watch him just like get on camera. He's a goofy guy and hell of a deck builder, dropping insights and nuggets. So that's a cool little spin off of a lot of stuff that we do too. But also our YouTube channels, which are all like if you look Team Builders up, you find that there too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, cool. Anything else to talk to add?
No, man, I just really appreciate, I know this is like episode 9?
9.
And you're growing. You were a student of mine. You and I connected really well back then, and I'm just excited to see you growing, pursuing your passions, doing your own entrepreneurship thing, and just like, hearing about, how you got started, what you got going on. Is just like, you're bringing the stories of the entrepreneurs, like hustle to get there, but you're also like living it out too, which I think is an advantage for you. So keep pouring in, keep following your passions. I think that's a huge thing. I read a book called The Passion Test, and that's how I live my life. I know what my passions are, and I know what fills my cup, and I pursue those relentlessly. And I think that's a huge piece to living a happy life too, is knowing what fills you and pursuing that with ambition. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Thanks for being on the show.
Awesome, man. My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Everybody that's listening, watching, I'll link all of Austin's stuff in the show notes below. And to those of you out there, keep building and keep hustling.